So I learned a new term this winter, straight from the lexicon of Garrison Keillor. He explained the other day the condition of involuntary polar euphoria, which I believe we are experiencing here in Pakistan. It is, he explained, the happiness and joy of knowing that we are all one in our misery of being freezing cold and not being able to feel our noses. A number of our usual members are away in Hawaii and Florida and other warm places, and I know that we feel sorry for them, that they are missing out on this feeling of togetherness that we are experiencing here. And together we are worshiping outside the box this morning. Visitors, please take note that this is not our typical order of service. Please come back next week and the week after to get a true sense of who we are. This morning you will get a sense of our playful side. Years ago, as the ministerial intern at the UU Society of Wellesley Hills, I was introduced to a play called the Heartfelt play, which we used as an intergenerational worship service. And with more time on my hands then than I have now, I offered to make the props for the play. And when I left that internship, I took those props home with me when I was done. I just knew I would be able to use them again. So I've brushed 7 years of dust off of them this week and added a few more with the help of Pastor Brenda and others. I've lost the names of the original authors of this play, and I've tweaked the script a little bit. Ministers can't really help themselves in the tweaking department. But I offer thanks to those creators and to the staff and congregation of the UU Society of Wellesley Hills who introduced the play to me, to this morning's actors, and I'll have you know this is an unrehearsed play, and they are champions to be part of it. And also thank you to all of you for opening your minds and hearts to something a little different this morning. Shakespeare wrote, "The play's the thing." So let's see what we can learn from today's dramatics and what it sparks in us as we reflect on the perfection of the heart. Please join me in the spirit of prayer and meditation. Quiet place of spirit, invite us into your stillness. Hold us in your peace and open in us a space of healing, courage, and connection. Help us to tend to this fragile part of ourselves. Help us to nurture an openness to what is. Help us to let go of the past, bringing into the future only what serves us well from memory and experience. Help us to be open to one another, including our limitations. Help us to be good companions on this journey, to be seekers of truth and light. Thank you for this reminder to be still, to be vulnerable. Thank you for this gift of today and the love we have known and the opportunity to begin again tomorrow. Amen. All right, ready to wing it? There once was a village that was the most wonderful place you could imagine. The people of the village all ate together, learned together, laughed together. They cried at their losses and had joyful celebrations. The village was known as Beneficence and was by far the best place in the world to live. council collected money from the people and also required that they give something from their hearts as well, like love or care or attention in some measurable way. It meant that people visited neighbors who were ill, helped fix a leaking roof, put out fires, or fetch the children when it was time to come in. Giving love and care became natural. The people enjoyed it, so it didn't feel like a burden. It just happened. And the interesting thing was that giving love and care made people feel much better about other types of generosity too. That might be a good time to take the offering this morning. We're all feeling so generous. As the choir sings our anthem, the ushers will gratefully receive the offering from our larger village. The people of Beneficence, in their wisdom, decided that it was time for them to elect a mayor to govern them. Because they had never had a mayor before, they didn't know how to decide, or exactly what qualities to look for. But they wanted to make sure that the mayor would be as loving and, well, frankly, as wonderful as they were. So the people of the village asked for suggestions. One of the craftspeople in the village pointed out,
"A leader must be handy."
One of the warriors who defended the village said,
"A leader must be brave."
a musician in the village who has lost her voice today and would have said, the mayor must have a good voice. The poet and sage insisted,
the leader must have a way of word.
The cafe owner said,
the mayor must like to drink coffee.
The librarian was insistent.
Reading matters most.
The firefighter spoke heatedly.
Safety inspection should be a priority.
And the minister just hoped that the new leader liked to go to church and would bring all the village people along. These were compelling concerns, but then one of the oldest among them stood up and said what she thought would make a truly great leader.
Love! Love!
Everyone in the village nodded their heads. So they decided that the next leader should love them more and better than anyone else. But how, the people asked, could they know how loving this person was? They wanted a mayor whose heart would be in a holy place. That puts me in the mood to sing hymn number 1008. I forgot to get you all hymnals, but you can find some. It's the teal hymnal. We are going to sing When Our Heart is in a Holy Place. 1008. No sooner had they all agreed on how important the mayor's heart was than they began to get anxious about finding the person with the very best heart. So they searched for someone whose heart was not too small to see the big picture and not too big to see the little things that people did for one another. They'd have to find someone so loving that he or she could see love in everyone and in everything. But how would they find such a person? How would they know the perfect heart when they saw one? And where might they look? After much debate, it was decided that the mayor would be decided by a contest. Posters sprang up throughout the land, supporting as mayor of Beneficence an individual who had the perfect heart. judged by empirical evidence. A nuclear magnetic resonance imaging machine was acquired. So they could examine each candidate's heart, and all of the people in the village stood in the middle of the square waiting to see who would be the next mayor. Many hearts came into view, but none of them appeared to be perfect. Some seemed way too small to love everything about the village. Stand behind the machine. Some were too big to make some of the harder decisions that required a delicate touch. Some seemed a little withered from lack of use. Some seemed tough from being overexercised. Some were cold and meant they would not be forgiving. Some were too fiery hot, indicating that they might be too passionate. Some were torn and had some mending to do. Almost every heart in the village had been tested. Young and old, women and men, big and small, had revealed their hearts. While the village held its collective breath, hoping the perfect heart would be found, they suddenly saw a stranger stride into the village square.
I have heard of your search, and I am here to claim the official bear's hat, because I have the most perfect heart in the land.
Some in the crowd rolled their eyes. This was not the first time they had heard such a claim. So when the stranger stood in front of the machine, no one was expecting to see the image that came into view, a perfectly shaped, perfectly sized heart in perfect condition. Suddenly, murmuring erupted everywhere. You can hold it if it's too tricky.
You can see for yourself that my heart is perfect. I have done nothing but care for my heart since the day that I was born. My parents and everyone else loved me unconditionally. I have been lavished with attention and always given the best care. My heart is the envy of all the land. You can see that there is not a scratch on it. It is the heart of a true leader.
The people of the village stood and stared. No one could deny what was being said was true. But somehow, something seemed wrong. Although the machine showed that he had a perfect heart, there was something that didn't feel right. If anything, the people felt even more anxious. There was something about the way the stranger looked at people, how he spoke with such expectancy, such a sense of entitlement. It was quite different from what they expected. And though it wasn't something they could put their fingers on, the villagers felt uneasy in their hearts. Though this stranger did indeed meet all of the conditions of the contest, of having a perfect heart, he did not give the people confidence. He did not make them feel the love they were looking for. He did not make them feel hopeful. And as the stranger approached the podium holding the mayor's hat to take over, people wondered what to do. They thought to themselves, there must be more love somewhere. Let's join in hymn number 95 in your grave hymnals. There is more love somewhere. It seemed the time had come for the chair of the city council to place the official mayor's hat on the head of a stranger with a perfect heart. Before he made it to the podium, another woman walked deliberately into the square. People knew her as the woman at the well. And when she turned to the people, all their caution turned to curiosity.
Good people of beneficence, we are anxious. As we thought about who we would find to lead us, we reflected on who we have been, who we are, and what we wish to become. We decided that the most important quality we want in our mayor is love. We want the same kind of love that has helped us care so well for one another until now. The kind of love that has always prompted us to do right by our neighbors. We thought we could recognize a perfect leader by their perfect heart. And so, we have stared into this machine for days to find a heart that has no flaws. And apparently, that is what we have found in the man who stands before you. But I believe that we have not found someone who has a perfect heart. We have simply found someone whose heart has never been broken. A perfect heart is much more than that. Consider my own heart.
The woman's heart, which appeared on the monitor, wasn't perfect at all. Although it was beating strongly, it was riddled with more scars, rips, and tears than any other heart they had seen. Pieces were missing. It was a patchwork heart, worn with age, broken in places, mended with time and attention. It was held together by consoling stories, memories of the past, and hope for the future. And the scars that made it stronger were fashioned from sympathy and faith. Now, the stranger began to protest that he had won the contest fair and square. He started to demand the official mayor's hat, which only confused the people of the village. They stood in the square and listened. On one side, the stranger pointed to his perfect heart. And on the other side, the woman showed them a very different image. We'll get it there. The people, it seemed, were torn between a choice they hadn't anticipated, and many of them felt even more anxious than before. A call came forth from the crowd that the people should decide what type of heart would most likely lead to the love they were looking for.
As chair of the city council, I believe that it's up for us to decide. Stand on your side. Stand on the side you believe will make the best mayor of benevolence.
As the call went out, the people milled about. Shoving began. People started to argue. Some took their place on one side or the other, believing that that was the side where love would be found. But overall, the feeling was not one of love, but of anxiety and unrest, and many didn't know where to look or how to respond. The commotion would not die down. Most of the people who had still not chosen a side felt frustrated and anxious. People began to lean toward one side and see that their friends were moving in the other side. For a moment, they were paralyzed in indecision. Just then, the warrior asked,
What would someone with a perfect heart do in this situation?
and the village people spoke in one voice.
Let the candidates speak.
And they said, let the candidates speak. They were so good at their one voice. And they all became quiet as they waited for the two candidates to speak. The stranger with the perfect heart stepped up first and shouted before them.
A good heart always remains strong, true to the course. It doesn't waver and falter. A good heart always makes the right choice, based on perfect reasoning, the evidence of a sure thing. A good heart never chooses a course that might lead to regret. Look at that woman over there. She has wasted her time and attention on the things that led to heartbreak. She has opened herself to disappointment. Her heart records the number of times that she has loved and lost. She has experienced brokenness. She has watched blood slip through her fingers and felt the sting of emptiness and loneliness. Her path has never been certain. So choose me, and I promise you will never know loss. You will never know disappointment. Then you will understand what it means to have a perfect heart.
As he finished speaking, he could see a few of the people standing with the woman shaking their heads. But most of those standing with the stranger, including those who had been most anxious, were comforted. The stranger was surrounded by lots of folks calling for their friends to follow them and stand on this side of love. The woman looked around at the crowd and she smiled.
Of course, everything he said is right. A good heart strives to make the right choice, tries not to choose its path in regrets. And he's also right. I have followed many paths that led to disappointment and heartache. And there's a reason for that. Do you see that scar? The one that runs down the middle? It happened the first time I had my heart broken. I had a crush on a girl, and when she asked if I would walk to the bus with her, I said no. Because I was afraid I would say something silly and she wouldn't like me. She moved away during the summer, and I never saw her again. I vowed it would be the last time I ever cried for not loving someone. Since then, my life has been about taking risks. I made best friends with people I knew who would move away. I watched people and pets I loved get sick. I even watched as some of them died. And I chose to be with them all the way, even though I knew it would hurt more than I could imagine. I risked losing friends by standing up for people being treated badly because they were different. I fell in love at the wrong times with the wrong people for the wrong reason. And as you see, I have scars to prove it. But I never let fear stop me. Every time I've loved someone or something truly, deeply, and honestly, my life's become a little richer and a little more worthwhile. And I think that others' lives became that way too. My friend is right. My scars are proof that I've had my heart broken. But I'm proud of them because each one is a badge that says, I've tried over and over to say yes to life. Because I believe life is worth saying yes to. And I love it when life says yes back.
As the people listened to what the woman had to say, they moved closer until they were all seated or standing close to her. The stranger saw everyone crowded around the woman, and he knew that in his perfect heart that he would not be the next mayor. When he realized that, he came across the square from where he was standing to join the villagers. He was very disappointed. In fact, it was enough of heartbreak that the first scar appeared on his heart.
I know that this first disappointment will make all the difference in my ability to love and to be truly happy. You have taught me what it means to risk and to stand on the side of love.
We hope that you have enjoyed our heartfelt play this morning. Thank you to our cast and our choir. As we sing our final hymn, please accept a Valentine given with love. Let's join for our final hymn, number 1014 in your teal hymnal, Standing on the Side of